Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Viewers, Pakistan's foreign policy seeks to protect, promote and advance Pakistan's national interest in the external domain. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the President of Pakistan and its first Governor General, in a broadcast talk to the people of the USA in February 1948, outlined the following goals of Pakistan's foreign policy. He said, "Our foreign policy is one of friendliness and goodwill towards all the nations of the world. We do not cherish aggressive designs against any country of the nation. We believe in the principle of honesty and fair play in national and international dealings and are prepared to make our utmost contribution to the promotion of peace and prosperity among the nations of the world. Pakistan will never be found lacking in extending its material and moral support to the oppressed and suppressed peoples of the world." Here the question is that are we following the same directions which Quaid-e-Azam asked us to? Are we seriously dealing with the complications we are facing internationally today? Do we have a competent person to represent Pakistan and its consent? I don't think so. In fact, we do not have a foreign minister. How can we claim to follow guiding principles laid out by our fathers? For Pakistan's foreign policy and all these questions that we have today that Pakistan is facing due to its weak foreign policy, we would like to have the discussion with Zaid Hamid Saab. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Zaid Hamid, and thank you for joining me.
Welcome.
Mr. Zaid Hamid, let's start our discussion on Pakistan's foreign policy, which is a very important sub-Pakistan today especially. We have prepared an outline on the objectives of Pakistan's foreign policy. Viewers can get updated, and then we will get back to our discussion.
Supporting Pakistan, a progressive, moderate and democratic Islamic country, developing friendly countries of the world, especially major partners and immediate neighbors. This is security and geostrategic interests, including Kashmir, solidarity, cooperation with international community, safeguarding the interests of Pakistani diaspora, ensuring optimization of natural resources, regional and international cooperation. The Constitution of Pakistan of foreign policy of the country. Article 40 of the Constitution provides, "The state shall endeavor to preserve and strengthen fraternal relations among Muslim countries based on Islamic unity, support the common interests of the people of Asia, Africa and Latin America, promote internal peace and security, foster goodwill and friendly relations among all nations and encourage the settlement of international disputes by peaceful means." The foreign policy of Pakistan is primarily directed to pursuit of national goals of seeking peace and stability, though international cooperation. Special emphasis is laid on economic diplomacy to take advantages offered by the process of globalization, also to face challenges of the 21st century. Our foreign policy is also geared to project the image of the country as dynamic and modern. The foreign policy of Pakistan seeks to promote the internationally recognized norms of interest relations, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity for all states, non-interference in the internal affairs of other states, non-aggression and peaceful settlement of disputes. Pakistan has therefore always sought to develop friendly and cordial relations with all countries of the world.
Yes, Zaid Hamid Saab, as you saw the objectives of our foreign policy. Now, I would like to know, first of all, that how do you see the foreign policy of Pakistan, especially since Pakistan is located at such a sensitive location on the globe? How do you see its foreign policy dealing with its neighboring countries and the world?
If you ask me, I'll not speak the language of the diplomats. They always lie. I'll tell you things which are not actually true. Diplomatic language is very different from the reality on ground. When America or Obama talks about trying to protect freedom and liberty, it's to do the wars that they are waging in the world have got nothing to do with freedom and liberty, everything to do with oil, everything to expanding American hegemony over the world. So coming down to the brass tacks, the reality of what the facts are, there is a tendency in the global powers, in the global interests of the world, to write off Pakistan's foreign policy or to tone down its influence. To be very honest, Pakistan's standards is the most powerful country in the region, more powerful than India, more powerful than any other country in the contemporary history you find operating in this region.
And how's that?
How's that? Let me explain to you. Whatever world you see today in the Indian subcontinent, or in the Central Asia, or in the East or the Greater Middle East, or even in the Eastern Europe, you will find very imprint of Pakistan's foreign policy embedded into them. Let me give you the example. When the Berlin Wall fell, and that's a great event in the history of Europe, unification, whatever world you see today, whatever you see the collapse of communism, the unification of Germany, and the rise of the new Europe, everything has impact on the modern world today. And the Berlin Wall was the symbolic gesture where the collapse of communism took place, the final collapse of communism took place. But when the Berlin Wall fell, the chief of German intelligence sent a piece of that wall to head of Pakistan's Director General of Pakistan's intelligence services with an inscription underneath to the one.
Why do you do that? That's what I want to know.
To the one who struck the first blow. See, Pakistan destroyed Soviet Union. It was Pakistan's foreign policy that we decided to cut a major superpower of the Cold War era, which NATO could not defeat, Americans could not defeat. Afghanistan was invaded by the Soviet Union in 1979. And that's where Pakistan made a solid policy decision that we will confront Soviet Union, Afghanistan, because for us to have Soviet Union on our western borders was an existential threat. It was our decision. We took it. We started to support the Afghan resistance. I set up the military strategy of death by 1,000 cuts. We created the bear trap. We trapped the Soviet Red Army into Afghanistan. The support from the Western world, from the Arab world, from China, came much later. It was the policy decision of Pakistan. In fact, the Americans had written off Afghanistan. Once the Soviet Union has entered into a land, it has never evacuated. So it will not leave Afghanistan. I'm saying Pakistan is the country which has, because Soviet Union, Pakistan was created in 1947, Indians had been allied with the Soviets. Pakistan had allied itself with China and with the Western, particularly the Americans. And Soviets have always been very, very hostile to Pakistan. In 1971, Soviet Union joined hands with India to dismember the eastern wing of Pakistan. Pakistan was dismembered not by India alone, but by India and Soviet Union together. A common defense alliance between Soviet Union and India, which.
So you think it was kind of our foreign policy failure that led to the separation, with the help of Russia?
I'm going to come to that. You see, the point that I'm trying to make is that Pakistan actually is a country which opened up centuries of the world. The maps were changed. The politics have been changed. Pakistan is the country which dismembered the Union. Pakistan is the country which destroyed, which struck the first blow as the chief of German intelligence on the Berlin Wall that had collapsed, and now you see a new world. Similarly, it is Pakistan which gave the jump start to China to become the industrial giant that they are today. Pakistan, the first country. See, Pakistan, India, China and Israel. These are four countries which are born around the same time.
Right.
Around 47, 48. All these four countries. And it's very profound how the relationship of these four countries intermingle with each other. It was a communist country, and at that time Soviet Union and China, two communist countries, were emerging. The threat was seen as the biggest threat to the world, so-called capitalist Western powers. The world was divided into two blocks, and that was the time when Pakistan emerged in the middle. The only Muslim country it was created on the name of an ideology. Pakistan was made on the name of a spiritual ideology. It was the politics were driven by a religious ideology. The other country created at that time, driven by religious ideology, was State of Israel, and the third country, State of India, which was driven by Hindu ideology. So there were three ideological states which were created simultaneously: Pakistan, India, and Israel. And communist China. It was the first Muslim country to recognize China, and not just recognized it, diplomatic relationship. And Pakistan International Airlines was the first airline which actually started into China, while the China at that time was in the blockade. Nobody would deal with China. And China needed a jump start. They needed an opening to the outside world, which nobody was giving them. Pakistan. And that is why in 72, when Americans wanted to deal with China, Pakistan's help, Henry Kissinger went on a secret visit to China through Pakistan. World didn't know about it. The announcement was that Henry Kissinger is visiting Pakistan. In reality, he was whisked to China, had a meeting with Zhou Enlai, Mao Zedong, and he was brought back here. And Pakistan actually is the one which gave a jump start
to China. And so, today we are behind.
I mean, yes, in that sense, industrially we are far behind, but the relationship that were forged, the relationship that Pakistan forged with China in 1948, now higher than Himalayas and deeper than the Indian Ocean, as we say it.
Right.
It's the strongest relationship Pakistan has, and for a reason. Pakistan again was the only Muslim country which had relation to two blocks. On one hand, we were very close to the Americans. On the other hand, we were very close to the Chinese, but hostile to the Russians. Russians responded back by destroying Pakistan's eastern wing. We fought back. We took revenge and destroyed Soviet Union between 1999 to 1988. So messing around with Pakistan is no easy task. No one can Pakistan and get away also. And let me give you another example. The Middle East that you see today, 1967 war and 1974 war, the Arab world was in total disarray. In 1967, air forces of the Muslim countries, Egypt, Jordan and Syria, were totally decimated. There was threat that actually overrun these Muslim countries because they were caught in total surprise. But the world does not know this, that it was Pakistan which defended Jordan, Syria and Egypt in that time. Pakistan Air Force is the only air force in the world which have shot down Indian aircraft in air-to-air combat, Soviet aircraft in air-to-air, Israeli aircraft in air-to-air combat. That's some score. No air force in the world. Pakistan, of course, Pakistani Air Force, flying in the uniforms of Arab air forces, but that's F, flying in Jordan, flying in Syria, flying in Iraq, flying in Egypt. We have those Arab lands, and we have shot down Israeli aircraft in air-to-air combat. As Pakistani armies have been deployed in the Middle Eastern countries. And if Pakistan army had not been acting in balance, Israel's expansion, the destruction of the Muslim countries in the Middle East had been done years ago. It was Pakistan's foreign policy of stopping Israel from expansion. It was Pakistan's foreign policy of protecting Muslim lands in the Middle East that actually kept Israel in the 50s, 60s and 70s. And that's why you find that David Ben-Gurion, founding fathers of Israel, when Pakistan was created as well at the same time, he actually warned the Israelis that we are not afraid of Arabs, but we should be afraid of the friends of Arabs, particularly Pakistan, because that is one nation which has the potential of harming Israel.
So, Zaid Hamid, tell me this, that you explained us briefly about how the foreign policy of Pakistan acted in 50s, 60s and 70s. Now, where do you see, like when the 80s started, what happened to our foreign policy? Go wrong?
We would rather say from the 90s. But let me come back to the background of it. You see, whatever you see, whatever foreign policy that you see of Pakistan was actually determined even before the creation of Pakistan. That's fascinating. This is something that we need to cover. The fact of the matter is that it was India. Pakistan was created an Indian subcontinent. A continent was divided and Pakistan was created. India fought tooth and nail trying to stop the division of India. India to stop the creation of Pakistan. And when Pakistan was being created, a greatest migration of humans, probably never in human history such a massive migration of Muslims ever took place, or humans took place, when almost 12 million started to migrate from India towards Pakistan when the partition took place in 1947. And equally staggering is the fact that the greatest slaughter also took place during this time, when all of them, nearly 5 to 6 million Muslims, were slaughtered on the way from India to Pakistan, butchered by the Hindu radicals, by the Hindus, the present day India.
So basically the family hatred was there for India from day one.
India not just resisted creation of Pakistan, actually butchered the entire Muslim migration also, which actually started off from India to Pakistan. So the blood feud with India was created right at the onset of creation of Pakistan. This day, Pakistan and India, we are in a state of war. We have only had brief periods of peace. Even right now, while we are doing this program, there are clashes going on the line of control on Kashmir. And the hostility has never reduced, let alone being reduced. In fact, it's getting every day. Both are now, after 65 years, both countries are nuclear power. The disputes that started in 40 Kashmir, they still remain, and both countries are strongly antagonistic to each other. But at the same time, one thing very interesting that you need to note, because whatever is happening to Pakistan has its roots in the 20s, 30s and 40s, even before the creation of Pakistan. I'm trying to emphasize right now, which the world does not know this. This is very profoundly important to understand one of the disputes that Pakistan faces today, which shape Pakistan's foreign policy now. So,
I have a question here. That do you think, seeing the background of Pakistan and India, do you think it's wise today in the age of millennium to stay head to head in a war kind of state with your neighbor?
let me give you an...
How do we proceed in this scenario? But I will do the discussion. We will go on a short break here. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, viewers. We're talking today on Pakistan's foreign policy. Do we have a soft policy? And if we don't, then how we can formulate a foreign policy by which we can improve Pakistan internationally? We are talking on the drawbacks of foreign policy and a background of policy of Pakistan. But before we get back to our discussion, Zaid Hamid, we need to know, we would like to see what Azam has to say about the relations of Pakistan with India and America and Canada. What he tried to give us in his statements, let's have a look at, and then we will get back to our discussion.
So, the people of America are deeply interested in India. I send you my cordial greetings on behalf of the Muslim India, and I feel your good wishes. As you know, of the many races and religions that inhabit the vast land of India, 100 millions of Muslims characterized the minority. There are 70 millions in western and northeastern zones of India. We cut a majority of 70% against the caste Hindus in these homelands of ours. We want the division of India into Hindustan and Pakistan because that is the only practical solution which restore freedom for both Hindus and Muslims and the achievement of stable and enduring governments of Hindustan and Pakistan, which I am confident will settle down as friends and neighbors like Canada states and other sovereign states both in North and South America.
As you can hear, Qaid-e-Azam telling us that 100 millions of Muslims be declared as a minority, and he stated very clearly about our relations with the other countries. So, Zaid Hamid, before going to break, we did work out on the relations with India, and know that what is this love and hate relationship with India and Pakistan. But what is the problem of Pakistan and Israel? And as we saw that Pervez Musharraf, he did try to improve the relations of two countries, but still he didn't achieve what he wanted. So what is the problem between Israel and Pakistan?
You see, you just heard Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He was one of the greatest Muslims of the 20th century. You heard his voice. It's the voice of a tiger. He was a fascinating leader who at one hand single-handedly dealt with the British Empire and with the dominant powers of Hindus and carved out a continent. The very simple reason that Pakistan and India are still in a state of war is because Hindus rejected this plan that you just heard, the division, and still Hindus want to reverse this division, that they want to annihilate Pakistan to back into the Indian fold, and of course Pakistanis can never accept it, and that is why you find us in a perpetual state of war with India. No matter what the diplomatic niceties are, the realities are, we remain in a state of war. Exactly the same problem with Israel as well. Even before the creation of Israel, after the First World War, when the Balfour Declaration was done, when the British Empire granted a mandate to Jews, saying that we will create a state for you in Palestine, one of the strongest and the fiercest resistance that came to this idea was from Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Muhammad Ali Jinnah actually rose against the British. He spoke harshly against it, called the creation of Israel as a dagger into the hearts of the Muslims. Such words, and he even threatened the British Empire that if a state of Israel was created, Muslims rise and rebel against the British Empire.
That's what he's saying of creation of Israel.
When Pakistan did not even exist as a state, when he was fighting, when Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Qaid-e-Azam was himself fighting for his own homeland, he was fighting Muslim causes in Palestine. He was fighting to protect Muslim interest in the Middle East. He was trying to resist creation of Israel. Israelis knew about this. So when it was created after the creation of Pakistan, Israelis tried very hard that Pakistan should accept them, recognize Israel as a state. So the first Prime Minister of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali Khan, he was approached by Israelis at that time in 1950. They offered, at that time Pakistan was a very poor country. We were trying to build our economy, build our army. We had a huge influx of refugees coming in, and we were in absolute dire, and we needed financial help. Israelis offered Pakistan that we will give you everything. We'll give you money, we'll give you resources, we'll give you weapons. Just recognize Israel. And the Pakistani Prime Minister replied, "Gentlemen, our souls are not for sale." Honorable reply Pakistani Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan gave at that time. And ever since that time, Israelis knew that Pakistan's founding fathers have been resisting the creation of Israel. Pakistani Prime Minister refused to accept Israel, recognize Israel, saying that our souls fail. Ever since that time, Israel has formed strategic alliances with India, because both ideological Hindu and Jewish states cannot see Pakistan thrive, develop nuclear power. Today, Pakistan is the only Islamic nuclear power as well. And this is for Israel. In 1984, Israelis actually sent in planes after they had destroyed Osirak nuclear reactor. The Israelis were confident. They thought they can destroy Pakistan's Kahuta nuclear plant. And Indians and Israelis staged a joint strike, planned a joint strike on Kahuta nuclear plant. At Pakistan Air Force, they thwarted that, resisted that. So these things that ever since Pakistan has been created, the blood feud between Pakistan and India, blood feud between Israel is already there. And as we are saying, all these events are embedded even into the events that took place before the creation of Pakistan. Giving you another example, Turkey is Pakistan's closest brother. Actually, Kardesh, the Turkish.
Right.
And there's a Turkish narrative which says that Pakistan and Turkey are iki devlet. Yani we are two countries but one nation. And there's so much spiritual bonding between Pakistan and Turkey. And again, the events of why is Pakistan...
There's an affectionate relationship between
Why is that so? It is again built into the events that took place almost 100 years ago. After the First World War, the Ottoman Empire was in crisis, Turkish nation was in crisis, Turkey was not even created state, but Turkish people were in crisis, and Muslims of India, leadership of the poet philosopher Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, he recited, Muslims of India, the whole continent cried for the Turkish Muslims. Women gave their bangles, men sold their houses and properties and collected funds and resources, and everything was sent to Turkey. The Turkish brothers at that time who were in a crisis during the First World War and after the First World War. Turks still respect that. Honorable nation as they are. The relationship between Pakistan and Turkey was actually built 100 years ago, even before the creation of Turkish and Pakistani nation today. So what we are saying to you is that Pakistan, the vision of our founding fathers, was of a pan-Islamic nation. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Iqbal, the visionary thinker, philosopher, the ideologue of Pakistan, they both wanted to see an Islamic vision where Pakistan would play a central role. And we have played that such.
Now, before we move on to the other countries, Israel and India, we have established that at the time of Pakistan, at the time of coming into being of Pakistan, the hatred foundation was there for the countries towards India and Israel. So tell me, this is our foreign policy addressing both these countries in the right direction right now?
You see, the fact of the matter is Pakistan always wanted to coexist with India. Our founding, you've just heard, the Quaid-e-Azam wanted Pakistan and India to live like Canada and North America. But the fact of the matter is, neither the North Americans or the Canadians are trying to take over each other. Indians are trying to take over Pakistan. It's the Israelis who want to destroy Pakistan. The fact of the matter is that both these countries, Indian and Israelis, can never accept Pakistan as an independent Islamic nuclear power and leading the Muslim bloc, because Pakistan has already done it. In 1980s, in the time while we were destroying the Soviet Union, Muslim world was in a crisis as well. There was Iran going on. There was a problem within the Arab League as well. Egypt had been thrown out from the Arab League and the OIC. Pakistan's President General Zaid Hamid played a central role in bringing the Muslim world together, in stopping the war, in uniting the Arabs together, bringing Iran and Egypt back into the OIC. And at that time, the Muslim world needed a spokesperson, somebody to represent the Muslim world in the United Nations. The entire Muslim world requested Pakistani President General Zaid Hamid to represent the world in the United Nations. At that time, Pakistan had emerged as the de facto Muslim world. Because Pakistan as a culture, the culture of Pakistan has ingredient, our fabric consists of cultures from the Muslim civilizations, from Arabia, from Persia, from the Indian subcontinent. So Pakistan is a fascinating bridge between the Muslim. But no problem with any Muslim country, even though the Muslim countries have problem with each other. For example, Iran have problem, Iran and Arabs have problem, Turks and Arabs have problems. But wherever there is a crisis in the Muslim world, it's Pakistan who comes in.
Hands out a hand to help them out. So how do we see America's relations with Pakistan? Since America's relations are very strongly embedded with as well, and at the same time with India as well. So now how do we stand in with America, and how do you see that?
You can see from the fact that in Pakistan, India has always been a hated country. And now, paradoxically, United States have surpassed. US is the most hated country in Pakistan today. And this tells you the kind of relationship that Pakistan has with the United States now. And this is again embedded into history also. Americans have always using Pakistan for their strategic objectives. And whenever Pakistan was in crisis, Americans have Pakistan. After the 1965 war, when Pakistan had fought the Indians, Americans put sanctions on Pakistan. Pakistan had no option again but to go to Chinese for equipment and weapons. After the Soviet withdrawal in Afghanistan, Americans again slapped sanctions on Pakistan. While Pakistan assisted the Western world in destroying Soviet Union, rewarding Pakistan, they slapped sanctions on Pakistan in 1990, again creating a crisis for us. And also note, while we sided with the Americans in this war on terror in Afghanistan, so-called, Americans have used that advantage. Americans have used Pakistan's non-NATO status to wage a war on Pakistan. Today, Pakistan is facing an existential war on the verge of collapse. Terrorism, insurgencies, drone strikes, American blackwater operators are operating all over Pakistan. They have decimated Pakistan, and this is the gift that the Americans have given Pakistan for being a non-NATO, for giving passage to the Americans to fight in Afghanistan. So, and we also know that once America and Afghanistan, they are going to slap sanctions again.
What's been said is that, you know, as America is using Pakistan US aid, as a response of the passage given to the Afghanistan.
True. You see, this is all fallacy. This is all fraud completely, because whatever the US aid or whatever quote fund they give us is peanuts compared to the losses and damages that Pakistan is receiving at the hands of it. They give us, for example, $10 billion worth of aid in the last 10 years. But they have done damages worth $100 billion to our infrastructure, to life and property, to the armed forces, to the aircraft that we have lost, to the attacks on our militaries.
Then why is Pakistan letting them do this?
See, every plane crash of General Zia, again, plane crash of General Zia were orchestrated by the Indians together. And this is also acknowledged by John Gunter Dean, the American in India at that time, who acknowledged this fact, that Pakistan's president was killed because Pakistan was rapidly developing nuclear weapons. And that is why Israelis decided to kill the man who was responsible for that. So, after General Zia's plane crash in 1988, it was just a single plane crash. It was also the plane crash of Pakistan's foreign policy. Ever since the last 25 years, our foreign policy is in chaos. We have
so what about General Pervez Musharraf? Did he address the foreign policy? Then came the People's Party regime, then PMLN regime.
It is Pervez Musharraf policy whose fallout that you are seeing in Pakistan today. Zardari government followed the foreign policy of Pervez Musharraf, did not bring about any change whatsoever, and now she is doing the same. What was the foreign policy of Musharraf, Zardari and Nawaz Sharif present was to allow limited access to the Americans into Afghanistan, give them free passage through Pakistan both ways, give them free air to bring about their supplies through our air, don't charge them any taxes, don't offer them any resistance. The Americans create insurgent and terrorist groups in Pakistan, let the Blackwater spread their tentacles and CIA spread their tentacles in Pakistan and create insurgent terrorist groups, as a result bring about a collapse of Pakistan, which they are doing in Egypt and Libya. And this is what our foreign policy have allowed them to do. This is what, for the last particularly, Pakistan's foreign policy does not exist. We are only obeying what the Americans are telling us. And
so you're saying that our foreign policy has been dictated to us and we are acting on it?
There is now not even US, even IMF is now dictating our policy. The present government has come, they have almost bankrupt, they wanted loans from IMF, and IMF has given them to give them most favored nation status to India, while India is waging a war and this government is doing it. So it's not just Americans now, even the IMF is now controlling the foreign policy.
So it brings us to a point where we want to know that why is our leadership letting everyone bully us? We'll continue our discussion right from here. We are going to go take a short break. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, viewers. On the foreign policy of Pakistan today, what are the drawbacks in the Pakistan's foreign policy? How can we fight them? What should be the principles and a framework of a foreign policy of Pakistan in the current situation that we are facing these days? Zaid Hamid, before going to the break, we were talking about how the previous regimes like Pervez Musharraf, Zardari and Nawaz Sharif regimes have created foreign policy which seems like a dictation from US or IMF or whoever can come and do, and then we are obeying them. So how can we change these things? How can we rectify problems in our foreign policy? Why can't we stand up and tell them that this is what we need them to do?
You see, we've been saying that the democracy that has been brought in Pakistan in the last 6 years is very categorically CIA-sponsored democracy. It was brought about to collapse onto Pakistan. It was not brought about, this democracy was not brought in to resistance to the US foreign policy. So naturally, we expect the Zardari government was the most corrupt in Pakistan, so it did not resist, and Nawaz Sharif government is the most incompetent and most insecure. They have just come the days to their arrival and almost
and we don't have an independent foreign minister.
We don't have a defense minister, we don't have a foreign minister, and we don't have an anti-terrorism policy, we don't have a policy, we don't have a vision, where Pakistan, where do they want to take Pakistan?
What's the fear of Nawaz Sharif for not having an independent foreign minister? If we consider the foreign policy, then he has an independent foreign minister.
He doesn't have a team. He does not have anybody competent enough.
What about the advisor to Prime Minister on the foreign affairs, Sartaj Aziz? How do you see him?
All people are tested in the past as well. They are below average mediocres. None of them is a brilliant visionary or a think theologue or a hunter killer who can protect Pakistan's interest in this cutthroat conflict, in a war where Pakistan is actually being dismembered like Syria. We are facing an existential war. Right now, for example, look at Syria. Syria was only able to prevent external attack by allying itself with Russia and Iran, who acted as
and China.
And China. Pakistan have such a strong relationship with China, Iran, with Turkey, with Saudi Arabia, but still Pakistan does not have a defense alliance. Pakistan still does not have an international diplomatic guarantee that if Pakistan is attacked, foreign powers move back and defend Pakistan.
They will stand by Pakistan. We don't see any of the powers.
There are unwritten laws. There are understanding with China, yes, but in the international diplomatic level, certain strongs have to be sent openly, not covertly, overtly. World has to be told their defense. Like from 1971, when India dismembered Pakistan, they openly declared a defense alliance between Russia, Soviet Union, and India, that any country which is under attack would be considered attack on the. And if India is attacked, that checkmated China. Because China then could not intervene to effect, then the threat from Soviet Union existed. Pakistan right now is being dismembered in the same way as Iraq, Libya and Syria was being attacked and dismembered. Pakistan is under attack. We are in a state of war. We needed a foreign policy which is able to protect and Pakistan's interest in chaotic times. Indians
so how can we protect Pakistan through a foreign policy? What else included in the foreign policy?
We said, for example, I give you the example that on one hand, Pakistan need to face up to the Americans because Americans still need Pakistan. We have potential, we have the will, we have the means to do with the Americans what we did to the Soviets. Americans are still in. They've got $80 billion worth of hardware there, which they need to take out, and they can only take out through. That's where the leverage is. Pakistan's geography is our strongest strength. If we allow the Americans to put all that hardware out, which they want to take, and distribute whatever they don't want to take within Pakistan to the insurgent terrorist groups, then it's bye-bye Pakistan, then it's over for us. That this is the time where we need to choke the Americans by their jugular and force them to come to our terms. We can't.
What are our terms? What should be our terms?
You see, our terms is the foreign forces must leave Afghanistan immediately and hand over Afghanistan to the representatives of Afghan people from the Pashtuns, Uzbeks only. No foreign forces, no Indian presence, no Blackwaters, no NATO, no Americans. Our term, because that's where the leverage is. Pakistan is the war that we are facing now is all from Afghanistan, and if the collapse crosses a certain red line, if the internal collapse crosses that red line, Indians will move in from the east under their cold start military doctrine, and the threat that Pakistan is facing. So we have to neutralize India. We have to neutralize the American threat now which we are facing from our western borders, which is coming from Afghanistan, and we still have time. We have our geography is our greatest strength. Americans cannot leave Afghanistan without going to Pakistan, and this is where we can put our foot down. But for that, we need a strong government, we need a strong minister, we need a strong foreign minister Right now, it's our Prime Minister is the Foreign Minister, Defense Minister as well. And they are themselves so shaky, so confused. They have absolutely no idea what are the threats to the country. And under this scenario, it's all crisis for Pakistan.
So what do we see if we look at the current government? What do we see in the coming years that this Sharif government will be handling the foreign policy? What would you like to suggest then?
See, the events are
who would be the most suitable person to be appointed as their foreign minister?
See, the events are moving so fast in the region that I don't see this government completing even the next months, let alone 5 years. If the collapse that is taking place in Pakistan, the economic collapse, the security collapse, the diplomatic and political collapse, the threats, the confrontation that is building up with India, the crisis that is coming into Pakistan from Afghanistan, if it continues with the same pace, I'm afraid next 6 months would be bloody for Pakistan and for the government as well.
You mean the next 6 months can be bloody for Pakistan, and seeing the internal threats that and Pakistan, we see US there, we see Indian penetration in Pakistan, and that factor that we didn't talk about, and I would like to know about that, is Saudi. So how do you see your Pakistan's relation with Saudi Arab? Is Pakistan addressing the relation with Saudi Arab in the right direction?
Saudi Arabia has always been considered a brotherly country. They've been helping us tremendously. We trust Pakistanis a lot. There's no doubt about that. Whenever Saudi Arabia needed a when they had a security threat, they always called in Pakistani forces to help them and support them. And they really trust us. There's no doubt this. But now the scenario has changed so much that entire Saudi security economy is totally controlled by the Americans. Saudis don't make their own independent policies anymore. They may be making in the 60s and the 70s when the petrodollars came into, when the Shah Faisal tried to use oil as weapon. That time Saudis could use their independent foreign policy to an extent, but not anymore. So Pakistan, despite the fact that Saudis trust us very much and they've always been friendly with us, they don't offer us any political, diplomatic or military support. Financial maybe to an extent, yes, but nothing other than that.
You don't think that Saudi Arab is playing any role in stabbing Pakistan for terrorism?
You see, Saudis will do what we tell them to do. They don't have any independent Pakistan policy, have any independent Afghan policy. They don't have any. They have problems with Iran. They have problems with. It's the sectarian dimension that creates disturbance for them. They were not very comfortable with Zardari government. They considered Zardari to be somebody they didn't like. They didn't like, but they didn't like him very much. So they're comfortable with the present government. But the fact is that Pakistan's threats that the Pakistan face now are now far beyond, far extensive, than what any of the previous governments have ever faced. It's an anti crisis for us. And unless and until Pakistan creates a larger security bloc, for meaning the SCO, a security bloc led by China and Russia, and make a regional security bloc with Pakistan, Iran and Turkey, for example, unless and until Pakistan mobilizes its force into this direction, the existing scenario where Pakistan stands alone and getting the beating also happens on one side, because Afghanistan is a hotbed of snakes. They're all secret services, hostile secret services. Israelis are there, NATO is there, Americans are there, Indians are there. Every hostile entity is present in Afghanistan, bringing a war into Pakistan, which we cannot stop. So to do that, we need to make a regional stand. Pakistan, China and Russia. Unless and until our foreign policy is directed towards creating a larger regional security, we will find it almost impossible to stand alone. And this is the crisis for us now.
So I would like to share this with you, Zaid Hamid Saab, that Sartaj Aziz has said that the former President Pervez Musharraf had said that there was verbal understanding with the United States on drone attacks, but the government cannot accept anything that impinges upon the sovereignty of the country. So what do you think that on this drone attacks issue, did Nawaz Sharif address this issue in the UN session in the right direction?
You see, if they want to stop the drone strike, it's a 20-minute job. All they have to do is stop the supplies from coming into Afghanistan and going out of it. That's it. You stop the NATO supplies and tell the Americans to stop the drones. The government doesn't want to do it. You see, when we stopped the NATO supplies after they killed our soldiers on the border, we stopped the NATO supplies and we told them to evacuate the airbase, which the Americans had a lot of time. And Americans were so under pressure from Pakistan because we had blocked the NATO supplies that they evacuated the base in 2 weeks. Never in American history have they ever evacuated in 2 weeks. They did when we told them, when we blocked their supplies. And supplies are the leverage they must use. Supplies are still going in, supplies are still coming out. Americans are they've got $1 billion worth of hardware. Their economy is crashing at home. They cannot afford to lose this hardware. They should actually threaten to seize this hardware. This hardware should become Pakistan's property as compensation for the that they have caused to Pakistan, for the betrayal that they have done to Pakistan, for the war that they have waged against by allowing CIA and RAW and Mossad to operate from Afghanistan into Pakistan. These damages are put on the Americans now.
But what's been said is that they might be leaving weaponry for Indians that can be used
not
later.
Just for Indians. They want to leave almost $40 billion hardware behind. That's not just for Indians. That's for every insurgent and terrorist group in the region. They leave something in Afghanistan. Ones can fight with each other. They leave some for the Pakistani terrorist groups so they can fight against the state of Pakistan as in now. So this is what we are saying. Everything, all their hardware, important hardware which they want to take out to Pakistan, which is on Pakistani ports, we must seize it. Because this, we must put damages on. They have betrayed us in the past, they are betraying us now. And this is the time, their economy is crashing at home, they cannot go against us. But if we allow the Americans to take out their hardware and distribute the rest in the region, then it's a security nightmare for us, much worse than what we are facing today now.
So you think that will be strong enough to take this step?
There is absolutely no doubt.
Seizing their weaponry.
We can do that. America do a thing. We block their supply line.
But how can a country which cannot address the issue of drone strikes in the right direction in their foreign policy
again, I'm not
would be capable of doing such a huge task?
I'm not saying Nawaz Sharif is capable to do that. What I'm saying is this must be done. If Nawaz Sharif is not able to do it, the nation must rise against him and force him to either to do it or to remove and bring somebody who can do it, because this is the way forward. We cannot let the Americans distribute $40 billion worth of hardware in the region. They want to leave a mess and chaos behind. It will be a catastrophic failure of Pakistan's foreign policy if we are not to stop what's coming our way now. We know it's coming, and we have the potential and the means to stop it now. We have to make China, Iran, Turkey, Russia. We can make a regional alliance and force the Americans not to leave behind. And this can be done.
Sure. I would like to bring attention this one more aspect that we were told. Our Qaeda stated that the state shall endure to preserve and strengthen fraternal relations among Muslims based on Islamic unity, support the common interest of the people of Asia, Africa and America, promote international peace and security. So he gave us all the dimensions, all the countries of the world.
And pan-Islamic.
And it was a global vision. How far are we vision that was given to us by our leader, Qaid Azam?
We have had, ever since the death of Qaid Azam and then the first Liaqat Ali Khan, who had refused to sell his soul to the Israelis, the honorable men died much earlier. And then Pakistan went through chaotic periods. The last 6 decades have almost been chaotic politically. Sometimes the democratic governments, sometimes the military governments. But still, despite all this chaos, we were able to achieve impossible results. We were able to achieve fascinating results. Something world would never expect us to do. We destroyed the Soviet Union. We reshaped the world. We defended and protected Middle East. We countered Israel and counterbalanced India in the subcontinent region. If India has not expanded into Sri Lanka countries, it's because they're being countered by Pakistan. And we helped China to a power which they are today. So our imprint, our footprint on the global point is still intense. But still we could be the greatest nation in this region, leading the Muslim, which was the vision of our founding fathers.
Before we end our show, we have just a couple of minutes. Zaid Hamid Sahab, I would like to know that a recent development that we have seen in this UN General Assembly session, that the US has shown a soft corner towards Iran, and that happened after 34 years. The leaders, they got to talk to each other, but Israel doesn't look like very happy on this refrain of the better relations between the two countries. So what do you see in the future that in Iran relations they get improved? What benefits would Pakistan get it, and how would Israel take this?
Remember one thing, America does not have a foreign policy either. It's controlled by the Zionist Jewish state of Israel. So basically building relationship with Iran and Israel getting angry is a good or bad cop thing, that's all. Americans do have policy. Whatever they are doing in the East, they're doing right now in Muslim states is being done to protect state of Israel. The economy themselves. And we are seeing right now as we are doing this program, the whole American government is going into a shutdown because they don't have salaries to pay to their troops. Their economy is totally collapsing now. And it's all because
Obama has created a mess there.
So whatever is happening in the greater Middle East is to protect interests. And why they want to build relationships with Israel is because they want to ignite sectarian wars between the Muslim world, with Iran. See, developing with Iran or protecting Iran, they are doing it for their own interest to an extent because there are sectarian wars within the Muslim world. And Iran represents the Shia sect and Saudi represents the Sunni sect, and both of them are almost at war with each other at various locations in the world. And this thing that Americans and Israelis want to promote even in Pakistan.
That's a last question. What should be the most priority in the foreign policy of Pakistan?
form strategic collective security in the region. Pakistan must make security alliances and blocs with China, Russia, particularly because this is the regional countries. If we are able to form a joint defense strategy, common security arrangement, then Pakistan would be able to hold on independently against a combined Indian-American NATO threat. Right now, our biggest threat is from the entire NATO, Americans, Israelis behind them, and Indians on the east. We are totally encircled. But we have allies, friends in the region, but our diplomacy, our foreign policy is so weak under the present political leadership that we can get advantage of the strength that we have. In the past, we were the leaders of the Muslim world. We have excellent relationship. Destroyed Soviet Union in the past. We can destroy the Americans in Afghanistan, but somebody with courage has to be. Right now, we don't see that.
Thank you very much, Zaid Hamid, for joining us. Viewers, as you saw that the foreign policy of Pakistan, the drawbacks of the foreign policy of Pakistan, and the strengths that we, in the history, what foreign policy of Pakistan held, and the way we stood up against the national world, international world. What is needed today for Pakistan is to make grand alliance that if any internal or external hardships Pakistan has to face, these alliances stand by Pakistan. That's it for tonight. We will be seeing you again next Sunday with more. Until then, Allah Hafiz and good night.